Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're playing Tired Fish, which loses 50 ELO each move. Thank you to Sean for leaving this idea in a comment. If you have any ideas you want me to try, feel free to comment them down below. My goal is to win one game. Let's get started with game number 1. Okay, the plan here is extremely straightforward because it's starting with an ELO of 3600 and losing 50 ELO every move. By move 20, it'll be back in like human territory at around like 2600. And if I can take that position to move 40, it'll be like 1600 or less and start making hopefully critical mistakes that I can actually take advantage of. Unfortunately, getting to move 20 and then move 40 against an engine and then Grandmaster IM FM down to NM level is not going to be very easy. It's not going to be trivial at all, but I'm hoping that if I play a very solid opening with the white pieces and we do get something very symmetrical like we are at the moment, the engine won't be necessarily incentivized to play super aggressively early on, and I'm eating my words already. Okay, pawn to c5 targets the d4 pawn. I'm simply going to defend with pawn to c3. Now, this is a little bit different from the other challenges that we've done against the engine, because in this challenge, it's not like I want to keep my queen on the board because of some specific stipulation, or I want to have a whole bunch of pawns, or any other of these sort of workarounds slash strategies that I've created for the other versions of Stockfish that we've played on the channel. Instead, for this version, I literally just don't want to have a blunder on the board for as long as possible. In this version, I literally just need to survive to a certain move number, which is probably going to be around move 40 or so, and then I can expect pieces of all kinds, pawns and knights and even the king, to do silly stuff because it will be a very, very low ELO. Although I'll admit, its current 50 ELO rating climb, 50 ELO sounds like a lot, but its current 50 ELO rating descension, I suppose, is going by pretty slow. But we're in a good position. We're super duper solid. It's going to do this G5 thing that it does, but I've learned that it's just trying to fianchetto the bishop in what it thinks is a slightly more optimal manner, I suppose, but that it's not really something that I need to worry about. So I'm just going to drop the bishop back. It's definitely, yep, there it is. It's going to fianchetto its bishop, and I am just going to mind my business and develop my knight. It's crazy that we're not even at 3000 yet. Okay, it does castle kingside, which leaves me to wonder, should I play, I don't know, something like knight to e5, grab the center, and maybe try and trade off pieces? That would definitely lead us to a more drawish position, which I think is what I'm looking for here, because obviously there's no universe where I gain any advantage against the engine while it's still over like 2800. There's just no even over 2600, 2500. There's really no chance that I have any moment where I grab an advantage. But what I can do is try and make the entire position more even or more draw tending, so that the engine, who doesn't know that I am a terrible player compared to itself, it's just objectively analyzing the position and playing according to it, so that the engine is more inclined to play into a draw. So I'm very seriously considering just knight to e5 in this position. If it ever takes, that's wonderful. Maybe we can trade off the bishops next, because it can't boot me out without moving the knight, and moving the knight means I can trade off the bishops. Not to mention the queen can come out and play, so it might be able to calculate some threats for me that it will play against that I will never see, if that makes any sense. So if there was, for instance, if I were to play knight to e5, and there were some line where it wants to play knight to d7, but it sees that in like 17 moves, queen to h5 followed by h4 followed by a precise long castle followed by a capture followed by some crazy queen sack or something leads to checkmate somehow, it's not going to play knight to d7. It's not going to challenge me. Do I need to see it? No, I just need the engine to see it. So I'm pretty optimistic about this knight to e5 move. We're going to roll with it, and it does in fact trade, so I'll go ahead and just take back, and I'm pretty happy about these trades. Queen to b6 is actually not a challenging move at all at the moment, because it's looking down at b2, but I always have rook to b1, and because I have my bishop stapled to that c2 square, something like bishop to f5 can never boot my rook. My rook is just super warm and cozy there on b1. So I'll go ahead and just simply defend with rook to b1, and I'm feeling pretty good about this so far. Queen slides over to c6. I'll admit I don't understand this move whatsoever. So much so that I kind of want to make fun of it and call it a 3000 ELO blunder, but realistically over 3000, I'm not going to understand what's going on anyways because it's an engine. I'm going to assume it's rooted in some universe where it's like looking at e4, so it's trying to play like knight to e4. Should I take it takes back and like f5, f4? That's very engine-y. So I'm assuming that queen c, the only thing that I can see is that it supports e4 for knight to e4. So I'm assuming that's the purpose. So I could try and specifically play against it with something like queen to f3 and hold down that e4 square. I could also just trade off. The problem is I would leave it with the bishop pair. So maybe kingside castles, e5, e4 is impossible because I dropped d4, but I'd trade and then e4. Actually, if it ever pushed e5, I'd trade and then have knight to f3 with this outpost on d4. A lot of interesting ideas. The thing is, though, I don't need to trade, right? That's a very rookie mistake on my part to just trade just because it's there. So maybe I just kingside castle. I think that's what I'll do. I'll just kingside castle. a5 means nothing to me. I would love to see a whole bunch more moves just like this one, where, I don't know, I can play something slow like a3, and I'm assuming b5 is coming. Oh, okay, high bishop g4. It's just doing whatever. It's just throwing pieces on either side of the board. Again, I think the position itself is just inherently very drawish. And the fact that it's losing, again, a very marginal amount, and it's still going to be much stronger than me, but the fact that it's losing a little bit of accuracy with every single move is a wonderful thing. And we're under 3,000 now, so it's not going to have a hard time, but it's not going to play that sort of crushing engine chess that we've, come to know and either love or hate, depending on the situation, by actual Stockfish. Now, obviously, we have a ways to go before anything that can even remotely be called an advantage shows up on the board, but we're at least in human territory now, which I feel pretty good about. So I'm wondering, do I just play the super confrontational pawn to f3 and create a weakness on e3 for myself? I was going to list another idea there, but to be honest, I don't really think this is a weakness if it can't target the pawn. It's only really weak if it can get attacked. So if I play pawn to f3, it bugs off with the bishop, and then it has no further way of attacking the pawn, then I think I'm totally fine. So I'm just going to play pawn to f3 and tell it to go bye-bye. Okay, bishop slides back to h5. Now I think I do slide over with queen to e1, because eventually I would personally like to get e4 on the board, and that's simply not going to happen as long as this pawn is pinned to the queen. Not to mention, it's just also a very natural move, looking for queen to g3. It just looks really, really good. I'm going to play queen to e1 right away. Okay, bishop slides back to g6. That, I'm not going to make fun of a 2,900 ELO bot because it's bitten me in the butt before, but that looks like a bad move. That looks like a very strange move to me, because why can't I just capture you? Pawn takes back doubles the pawns. So this bishop is entrenched here forever. There's no way you're getting rid of this bishop without trading off your own bishop. Plus, it opens up a file directly into a pawn that's supported, so that file means nothing. Unless it's looking for something totally crazy like g4. But even that, f4, and then what? I don't see the follow through there. But okay, as I don't understand it, but it is still technically an engine move, so I'm going to go ahead and just take it. And obviously it takes back. I mean, I like this. This position looks really slow, which I love because I need to survive at least until move 40 or move 50, and then pieces will just start basically falling from the sky. But again, until then, it's not like I can really press the bot or the engine for any sort of advantage. I can make fun of its moves, but I'm not really going to do anything about it. I'm just going to sit here and, survive. So let's see, what should we do next? I wonder if e4 is appropriate yet, because I'm the one here that really has the hand on the button for when we should open up the position, which means I could also just wait. I could play something like queen to e2, and I don't see how it's going to force me to open up the position. So I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to hang tight for just a sec. Queen to e2. Okay, pawn to b5 coming in with a queenside attack, very clearly looking for this b4 pawn break. This might actually force me to play e4, because if I simply allow this, there's takes. If I take, then I have an isolated pawn, which will get targeted, and then this will be a protected passed pawn, which would be losing very, very quickly. Or after b4, I take, it takes, or rather it takes back on b4. If I don't do anything about that, it can take on c3, I take back, and then there's rook to a3 targets the pawn, queen slides over up to a5 targets the pawn, and I'm going to spend the rest of the game holding on to this pawn, which I don't think will survive for particularly long. But if I play e4 right away, it might be forced to do something about d5, because if it pushes and drops d5, then c4 also drops. And then we both just have a bunch of weaknesses. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this e4 push on the board right now. Okay, it does in fact take right away. Oh wait, I didn't calculate what would happen if it took. Can I just take? Knight takes, bishop takes. It can't sack because I take back, king takes, I take on e7 with my queen. So after takes, I take on g7, king has to take back. Queen takes, pawn takes, and then what? We just have a pawn and rook endgame, which is infamously drawish, which means I should be able to drag that out by 50 move rule at least another 50 moves if I don't play, horrible chess. So I think we'll be doing exactly that. We'll just take on e4. It does in fact take back. No way I take with the queen, because then just queen takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, pawn takes. I have doubled pawns, which looks terrible. So we'll take on g7 first. King does in fact take back. We'll take on, or do I leave the queens on the board? Ooh, I didn't think about this. Wait, let me think about this. If I take with the queen, almost certainly the queen will take back. Otherwise, e7 is a huge weakness, and the king is already weak, already doubled pawns, already too many open squares, yada, yada, yada. So takes, almost certainly queen takes. Pawn takes back. I really think I'm way better there than the engine. b4, you'd imagine I take anyways to not risk leaving an isolated pawn, so pawn takes back. And then what? Just rook to a1, and we're all just like looking at each other across all flanks? I'm honestly perfectly okay with that. And then I just have to drag that out for a comical number of moves, because again, this is probably 0-0 on evaluation if I had to guess. This is probably a draw already. So I just need to drag this out for another 20-30 moves and then collect my presents of free pieces like it's Christmas. So I think we'll do exactly that. Let's just take on e4, queen takes as expected. We'll go ahead and just take back. And okay, that is a strange move. I'm assuming it's just trying to make its pawn structure a little bit more concrete, especially against rooks. You don't want pawns like orthogonal to each other. You want them all diagonally spaced, just on the principle that should a pawn ever fall, it takes 1-2 moves to take the next one, and then 1-2 more moves to take the next one after that, as opposed to the Pac-Man method of just takes. But okay, with that, we are quote unquote down to a 2500 ELO bot, which sounds scary, but most of these bots are frankly overrated anyways. For example, I think the Levy bot was rated like 2400 or something. And at the inception of this channel, I played him, I think for 2 or 3 episodes, and I either drew 2 of them and lost the last one, or just drew all 3 of them. But I never continued the series because frankly it was getting a little bit boring. And I'm only rated like 2100 blitz/rapid on chess.com. So it is very realistic that we're already in territory where it's not going to blunder, but it's not going to, press me for any real advantage. I do, however, want to keep the rooks on the board. Reason being that they can afford me many, many extra moves that a king and pawn endgame wouldn't be able to without leading into a draw very quickly, usually by 3-fold repetition. So I was actually thinking pawn to g3, but the problem is rook dives down to f3, takes, king to f2, rook to f8. By the time I get my rook over, there's g5 on the board, and then maybe it like connects its pawn structure. It might not be fast enough. I might have h3, but I'm not going to put myself on the defensive for no reason. But I would like to get my king out towards the center. That's where he needs to be. The problem is the only other way to do that is to trade everything off, which, like I just said, I really don't want to trade off my rooks for no reason. So what to do? Maybe I play pawn to h3. No, pawn to h3 allows g3. That looks even worse. Rook to f3 though. Takes, h5, h4, and I'm wondering if I'm fast enough to take that with my king. That's so sketchy though. I don't need that kind of complication. I think I'm genuinely just going to wait around for a little bit and start the process of burning through extra moves. Okay, there's pawn to h5. It's making its position a little more concrete. Eventually, I don't doubt that it's looking for this pawn push, which is not ideal, but I don't think devastating either. And it's now in that zone as well where it's going to start experiencing some pretty serious rating decay. So hopefully its ideas will become shorter and shorter in their reach into my position. Because I know it wants to play g5, h5, g3 and just, push my position into the back rooms, but I think I can wait it out. So I'm going to keep shuffling my rook around instead. Yeah, there's pawn to h4, but I think I got this. I actually think that rook move is a really good sign because I don't think that does anything. I think what it wanted to play was g5, g3. And it has now played this intermediate move. Again, still much stronger than I am, or actually at this point, 2300, it's really not that much stronger than I am, but still stronger than I am, but not devastating, I don't think. So let's just keep waiting around, e6, and now we're finally, I think, experiencing some serious rating decay that's actually visible on the board. I sincerely believe that if I can just get it under 1500, it's pretty much game over. So we'll just shuffle around again. Okay, we do get pawn to h3. Now I have to deal with this very carefully because my instinct is telling me g3 because I want to keep these pawns doubled. The problem with g3 is rook to f3 with this newly created outpost that this g2 pawn used to cover. Should I take the pawn takes back, king to f2 is met by rook to f8, rook over is met by g5, rook e3 with a double attack is met by g4. However, how on earth do you actually push through in that position? You'd have to come back over with b4, takes, and I am probably worse there, but that is so many moves that I think by the time it even gets over here to maybe even set up that queenside break, after establishing itself on the king side, it's already going to be rated 1600. So I don't even think if it even follows through with it, it won't even know what to do with it after. So I think I can actually play g3 here and be totally sound. Okay, it sets up rook to a8 first, which is fair because there's nothing that I can really do about that. However, I could slide this rook over to e1. That way, should it play f3, I just it takes rook to e3. This might have actually been a mistake because after rook slides over king to f2, g5, you're short by 1 move. You need to be on g4 and I can just take. take. So I think rook to e1 here is very sound. Rook slides over again. Okay, this is where we can finally start to, I think, get the upper hand. Rook slides over to e8. I'm gonna go ahead and just burn it down, maybe another 200-300 ELO with random rook moves, without repeating the position, and we should be totally winning. Okay, the problem is I now have to be super careful to not repeat the position 3 times because that is obviously a draw. But it is down to 1900. I'm afraid to do something like e5 because of rook to f5, but I think I can still take that. Pawn takes back, and I don't think I'm afraid of any breaks there, so I'm gonna play e5 to establish the position as something different. Okay, we do get rook to f5 anyways, but I'm simply going to take. It does take back, and again, this is such a closed position that neither one of us, I think, can realistically break through. I mean, there's still b4 on the board, actually, now that I think about it. Takes, maybe check, rook back. Maybe I buy myself a little bit of time there, but I don't think it's actually going to challenge me. Worst case scenario, maybe I just play rook c1. If b4 takes, rook c2. If takes, I take back, and this rook on c2 looks at the pawn, looks at this pawn, everything's defended, and I just waddle around with the king until it's 1200 and, you know, sucking on its thumb. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and actually do exactly that. Let's just go rook to c1 right away. Rook to d8 doesn't even challenge anything. If it wants to take the pawn, by all means, we'll walk the king up. It's already rated 1700, so I really don't think it's going to pose a threat of any kind. I don't even think it knows what to do in this endgame, so I can literally just wait around and just not lose space, and eventually, you know, a rook will appear on d4, a gift will be given. But I will say that at this point, I'm extremely confident that we are, you know, set to win this. Now, king to h5 might already be a mistake, because don't I have d5? Pawn takes, king takes. Well, maybe not. I suppose it has a rook check. This pawn isn't such a guarantee, and then it's a 4 versus 3 over here. Okay, we'll hang tight for just a sec. It's already at 1500, so I'm feeling pretty good about this. Rook to d8 does stop the pawn push, but no worries. I'm gonna go ahead and just take a rain check on the blunder and just play rook to f2. a4 closes up the position, so it doesn't even have the pawn break anymore. Also, it structurally changes the position, so threefold is now again reset. I can go ahead and just make another waiting move. The rook does slide over. I think d5 now is actually a concrete win. Takes, I take here, passed pawn, no weaknesses in sight, and I think that's just way better for me. Not to mention, rated now 1400, this engine is really not going to pose me any challenges. Rook to d8. Obviously I can't take because rook takes back, but I have d6 here, and I do think that's devastating, because now I just have this king climb all the way over. So king to e3. I might actually throw rook to f2 on the board to make sure that f4 never appears, but king to d4, and it's just super duper weak here. I have this king doing double duty over time, looking at b5 and also supporting this passed pawn. Not to mention, now rated 1150, this bot is, not a very strong bot. Okay, I can simply take. b2 is never a weakness because the rook defends it, and this is a new game. This is no longer chess. This is called Hungry Hippos, and it's rating. What happens when its rating goes to 0? Does it just like implode? In any case, at a rating now of 900, this is basically, you know, decorative abuse. I can just take and I can just push all of these pawns, and it's not going to touch me. Yeah, king slides over, doesn't even try to challenge for this free pawn. a4, this is just a tsunami of pawns tearing down the board. On the bright side, I do think I know exactly what should happen as its rating starts to tinker down. We'll go ahead and just grab this free rook. Thank you very much. We'll just push all of these pawns, secure the rook with a check, go in for a promotion so I can give my absolute favorite type of mate by promoting to a queen, move the rook down so it's actually in a position to mate. The king slides down, and invented in 3600 AD by Zboop Beep Boop, we do get Ladder's mate. With that, we do in fact defeat Tired Fish. Thank you so much again to Sean for suggesting this idea in the comments. If you guys have an idea of your own, feel free to drop a comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.